What's up everybody, Johnnie Omega here, giving you my review of Mid-90s. This movie is written and directed by Jonah Hill, and is a pretty straightforward story about a kid with a bad home life that starts hanging around with a skateboarding crew. Definitely gotta give props to Jonah Hill first and foremost, because he did a great job of capturing what it was like being a kid in the 90s. Before social media came around and kids became physically attached to their cell phones, kids back in the 90s actually did stuff. This group of kids just happened to be skateboarders. And this movie even went as far as to shoot the whole thing in 4:3 aspect ratio, just giving it that perfect pre-2000s feel. This movie did a great job from a narrative aspect, actually showing how tight these kids are in this group. Because they're pretty much at that age where your friends actually mean more to you than your own family does. And a lot of these kids don't have good home lives, so it's just more of a reason for them to be so attached to their friends. And if I had an older brother like this guy, I wouldn't want to go home either. But I'll be the first to admit the nostalgia factor in this movie was high for me because I was these kids' age during the time period that this movie takes place. So it's just the little things in this movie that just reminded me of how we acted at that age, at that time. Just simple stuff like how these kids talked in this movie was funny to me because that's how we actually talked back then. And I love the lack of safety awareness in this movie too. Now, I'm not saying I'm against child safety, but nowadays when you see a kid doing something as simple as riding a bike, they got a helmet on, they got elbow pads, knee pads, shoulder pads, they got a neck brace, they got goggles on, a mouthpiece, shoulder pads, are practically wrapped in bubble wrap, and all they're doing is riding their bike up and down the driveway. But the kids in this movie have none of that, and that's exactly how I remember growing up. And I love the interaction that these kids have with each other in this movie too, because it shows that in a group of friends, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. No matter how close you are, if your group of friends is more than 2 or 3 people, at some point, somebody is going to bump heads with somebody else. It's practically inevitable, and this movie did a great job of showing that. And Jonah Hill did a fantastic job of not only directing the movie, but also in the writing of it as well. The story itself is very simplistic, but it's not a bad thing at all. And even if you didn't hang out with a skateboarding crowd, this movie has things that just about everybody can relate to on one level or another. The only thing I'd have to say negative about the movie is the way that it ended. I mean, when you're watching it, you kind of have an idea that the movie's about to end, but when it does so very abruptly. So in conclusion, the story was well written, the acting was pretty good by everybody all around, no complaints really there. Replay value of the movie is good, and I'm definitely looking forward to Jonah Hill's next project. All that being said, I'd give this movie a solid C+. So comment below and let me know what you guys thought about the movie if you've seen it, and also, if you were alive in the 90s, what do you miss most about that decade? If I had to say one thing, I'd definitely say the music. What they play on the radio now just isn't even comparable. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to see what we got coming up next.